Chapter 6. An Unaccompanied Suite.
Ma'am, we're here to escort you out of the palace. Would you please follow me? A white Pegasus guard said. Chrysalis looked up, her eyes wide and distant. She was still trying to comprehend all the events that had transpired in only a few number of days. A couple of days ago she had been about to conquer Canterlot. Now she'd had her title stripped and had been forcibly changed into an earth pony. All the power she once had was now gone. She could not fly or use magic. In her mind, this was the degrading body. Her mind had not caught up with her body. She silently got up and followed the guard automatically. As she walked, she stared at the ground, lost. Instead of the hardened black hooves that she'd once had and knew, she now saw soft tan hooves. Chrysalis could only follow the hoofbeats in front of her. "We're here," the guard said. Chrysalis finally looked up, seeing that she was in a place she thought she would never see again, outside. She stood there for a moment, feeling the sun against her coat. "Here you go, ma'am," the guard said as he grabbed the saddlebag over his back, holding it out in front of Chrysalis. "What is in the bag?" Chrysalis asked warily. The guard placed the bag on the ground. "I do not know. I was ordered to escort you out of the palace, and to give you that bag. Now, if you will excuse me, I must get back to my post. Have a nice day." As he finished, he turned around and closed the door behind him with a soft thud, leaving Chrysalis alone outside the palace. Chrysalis stared at the unassuming saddlebag in front of her. After a fruitless staring contest, she finally grabbed the saddlebag and opened it. She dug out a small coin purse filled with bits. She placed it back and pulled out a stack of papers, flipping through them to see that they were her documents, as Celestia had said. There were her identification papers, birth certificate, and her apartment contract, with a key. She dropped the papers back into the bag, falling to her haunches, the steady realization of her situation finally dawning on her. Is this my life now? To be a pony? Am I supposed to associate with the things I once called food? Chrysalis thought as she stared into the sky. No, Chrysalis whispered, her eyes narrowing. I will not be beaten by you, Celestia. I will not dare associate myself with your little ponies. I will have my revenge at any cost. Canterlot and Equestria will be mine. Grabbing the bag roughly, she flung it over her back. She could use these later on. With a grim and determined face, she made her way to Canterlot's entrance. There is no way you can keep me locked up in your precious city, Celestia. I will escape, Chrysalis whispered to herself as she made her way to the main gate. There was nothing out of the ordinary, just the standing two guards with blank faces. This will be easy, Chrysalis thought. Puffing out her chest and lifting her head, she made her way to the gate. "Stop right there, ma'am," one of the guards said. Chrysalis stopped, her path now blocked by two brown unicorn guards. "What is the meaning of this? Get out of my way this instant," she snapped. "I'm afraid we are not allowed to do that, ma'am. We have orders to keep you within the borders of the city. You are not permitted to leave," the other guard replied. Chrysalis took a step forward. "I demand that you let me out immediately," she yelled. Other ponies around began to turn their heads to view an angry tan mare shouting at guards. The guards in turn stepped forward, standing right in front of Chrysalis and looking down at her. From the perspective of her new pony body, they looked much more intimidating. "If you are unhappy with your current situation, we will be more than happy to give you new accommodations in the dungeons," one of the guards said sternly. Chrysalis's ears flattened as the two guards stared her down. She could hear the snickers of the ponies in the background. Her cheeks began to turn a light shade of red. With a loud she turned round, raising her head. "You cannot keep me here forever." As she walked away, her poise began to falter. She stomped at the ground in frustration, her mane flying wildly in her face. "Fine, Celestia. I will play your game for now, but I will win. You will not break me," Chrysalis thought, her nostrils flaring. Finding a corner to sit down, she again opened her saddlebag. She grabbed and opened the coin purse, and her shoulders slumped at the sight she saw. There were barely enough bits to last the week, and that was if she used them sparingly. Celestia was not kidding. She would have to get a job fast. She shuddered at the thought. Chrysalis walked all around Canterlot, looking for a help wanted sign. She eventually made her way to the upper terrace of the city. While walking, she spotted what she was looking for. There was a help wanted sign on some fancy-looking restaurant called The Garden. Putting on her best mask and a fake smile, she strolled in. She was confident she was a great actress, after all. An hour later, Chrysalis strode out of the restaurant. She had expected much more of a challenge, but this had been too easy for her. She had played the restaurant's management like fools. With a fake smile and a flick of her eyelashes, she had them dancing in her hooves. Chrysalis could not lie. It felt amazing to feel as though she had power again. Knowing that she could still easily manipulate ponies in this form was a huge relief to her. Chrysalis made her way through Canterlot, looking down at the paper that had her apartment's address on it. Finally able to locate it, she made her way to, as she called it, her temporary home. After struggling a little bit with the key, not used to having to use her mouth or hooves, she finally made it in. She sighed with relief looking at her apartment. It seemed plain, but at least it was clean. Looking around, she found a bed, a nightstand, a cabinet, and a full-body mirror. Chrysalis was afraid that Celestia would make her stay in an awful, dirty, and downright nasty apartment as revenge. Walking over to the mirror, she gave herself a good look. She saw a light tan-colored coat and silvery white mane. Her cutie mark was two masks, one frowning and the other smiling. She turned her head in disgust. How dare she put me in a lower life form's body? This body is weak and soft, not fit for a queen. She took another look, blowing her mane out of her eyes. At least my eyes are the same color, proof of my former self. Walking to the window, she looked down at the street below, watching ponies stroll around. "I will beat you, Celestia. I will not frolic with your ponies. You may have won this battle, but I will win the war," Chrysalis said harshly. However, before she could win her war, she had to go to work tomorrow morning. Chrysalis stood there, fidgeting with her uniform. She had never been used to wearing clothes. It also felt too constricting for her. In addition, she hated that she had to follow orders. She was a queen. She gave the orders. But for now, she had to play Celestia's little game. She sighed, balancing the tray of food that was on her back. Chrysalis was told that she had to give food to a very special customer, some pony named Blue Blood or something. She had not been paying attention. Walking over to the designated table, she found the pony she had to serve. He was a large white unicorn stallion with blue eyes and a strange compass-looking thing as a cutie mark. Again putting on her mask and a fake smile, she walked near him. "Well, it is about time. Do you know how long I have had to wait for my food? Such service! How hard is it to give me food on time? You lowly peasant, do you know who I am? Now hurry up, wench, and give me my food," Blue Blood said haughtily. Chrysalis's eye twitched. She gritted her teeth. The burning anger deep inside started to flare up, ready to be released as a raging inferno. Her breaths became more shallow, her body quivering with rage. How dare he insult me? I am Chrysalis, the queen of the changelings. Are you deaf or just stupid? Did you not hear me? Blue Blood said impatiently, turning up his nose. Chrysalis, at this point, was shaking with rage. Grabbing the tray of food, she slammed it into Blue Blood's face as hard as she could. Clang! Blue Blood fell over, shrieking while holding his nose. How dare you? Do you know who I am? Blue Blood asked feebly, trying to sound tough. Before he could get up, Chrysalis was standing over him, her green eyes burning with rage. The entire restaurant fell quiet. You ungrateful insect! I do not care who you are, because to me you are nothing more than a lowly worm that deserves to be crushed underhoof, Chrysalis yelled back. Blue Blood shrank back with every word, cowering, as the angry mare stood over him. But, he whimpered, unable to finish when Chrysalis jammed her hoof into his mouth. Silence, you worthless bastard! Chrysalis roared. How dare you insult me? You are nothing but an ant compared to me. Yes, cower before me, you little insect. Fear me. She felt powerful, watching her helpless victim tremble before her. Chrysalis knew she was going to enjoy every second of this, the perfect way to vent the rage that had been building inside her over the past couple of days. I will enjoy slowly draining your life away. I will savor every moment as you beg for your worthless, pitiful life. You ignorant ass! Chrysalis said venomously. She placed her other hoof on his chest, holding him there. Blue Blood was on the verge of crying. He tried to get away, but she held him there. Now beg for your worthless life, you miserable... Chrysalis could not finish her sentence as two guards came and grabbed her off her victim. She struggled in their grasp, angry that she was denied her prey. You bastards, get your hooves off me at once! I am not finished with that worthless pile of flesh over there. Let me go this instant, you fools! Chrysalis yelled, struggling against the two guards to no avail. As she was dragged out of the restaurant, the crowd stared, their mouths agape. However, there was a stallion in the corner with a blue mane and a mustache, sitting with a pink-maned white mare, quietly chuckling to himself. Oh my, that shut up old Blue Blood, didn't it? Boy, did she give him what he deserved. Jolly good, miss, jolly good, he quietly said. Chrysalis was dragged out of the restaurant and unceremoniously dropped on the ground, the doors slamming behind her. Bastards! Chrysalis shouted. How dare they take me away from my rightful prey? Ripping off her uniform, she stomped off angrily. She'd only had her job for 1 hour, and she'd already been fired. Still, it was nice that she got to vent her anger on that stallion. She had greatly enjoyed watching him squirm. She sighed. She was going to have to find another source of income. A loud growl from her stomach interrupted her thoughts. Clutching her stomach, she remembered she had not eaten anything at all. She shakily stood and set off for a place to eat. After her first step, her malnourished limbs betrayed her, and she stumbled, hitting the ground hard. She had not eaten any food since her punishment, and even then she had been starving as a changeling. Panting hard as she got back up, she slowly started walking with her head hanging low. Today will be a long day. Chrysalis sighed as she sat down at an outside table. It was only noon, and she was already exhausted. After a long walk, she managed to find a small, odd-looking bakery called Bread and Butter Bakery. She rested her head against the table, her eyelids already falling due to the day's events. A nap sounded like a great idea. "Why, hello there, miss," a cheery voice said. Chrysalis looked up, irked that someone would disturb her attempted nap, to find an older-looking mare gazing down at her with a smile on her face. "My name is Rye Bread. What can I get for you today, hon?" Chrysalis remembered that she was at a restaurant. She stared at the menu in front of her. Everything on it looked foreign to her. Chrysalis had never needed to eat food for nourishment, and she had rarely eaten when she was in disguise. She had no idea what was good or how it would taste. She sighed and put down the menu. "Just give me the cheapest sandwich you have." The waitress smiled. "Sure thing, miss. One peanut butter and jelly sandwich will be coming right up." She paused, a worried look crossing her features. "Is everything all right? Is money an issue? If so, we will gladly give you a discount on your meal. You look exhausted." "I do not need your pity or your help," Chrysalis snapped, giving the waitress a hard glare. The waiter nodded sympathetically. "Sorry, miss, I did not mean to offend you. I will bring your food out shortly," the waiter replied gently, as she turned around and walked back toward the bakery. Chrysalis glowered as the waitress left. After she was gone, Chrysalis put her head back down on the table, sighing. "I hate you, Celestia," she whispered. The waitress re-entered the bakery with a frown on her face. "Sourdough," she called out. An older-looking stallion, roughly the same age as the waitress, turned from behind the counter. "Yes, honey," he answered, a kind smile on his face. "Dear, there is a poor mare outside who looks weak and exhausted. She acted very proud and stubborn, I could tell when I looked into her eyes. I offered her a free meal, but she instantly shut it down. We cannot just leave her out there without doing anything. Do you think you could make her order much larger than normal?" Rye said. The older stallion's face softened. "Of course, dear. Who would we be if we did not give a helping hoof to those who need it?" Sourdough answered. Chrysalis, on the other hoof, was in and out of consciousness. She wanted to sleep but couldn't, and she was starving. For the first time in her life she felt her stomach grumbling, and she hated it. She felt weak, both physically and mentally. Chrysalis was miserable, and although she would never admit it even to herself, she was starting to sink into depression. Chrysalis's mind wandered. She wanted to continue fighting, to beat Celestia and Equestria. Ever since she was born, she'd had to fight and struggle just to survive, and she was getting tired of it. Her mother had used the last bit of her energy giving birth to her. She had been alone from the very beginning, trying to carve out a measly existence for herself and her changelings. Chrysalis carried a heavy burden on her shoulders, and the weight was finally starting to bring her down. She had tried to do everything for her changelings, by giving them energy or trying to make them self-aware. Although she had made some progress on the latter by making them feel some emotion, she had ultimately failed. She could not get her changelings to become individuals. To them there was only us and her. Always obedient and never questioning, they could never think for themselves. In the end, they were just beasts. She had to plan all of the movements, all of their actions. She did not miss them greatly, but she was not completely lost without them. She'd never had any real relationships with them anyway. At that moment, though, she wished she could be with them, to have died with them in their final battle. Most of the changelings had been crushed between a wall and shining armor's barrier, dying instantly. After the failed invasion, she'd only had roughly 70 left. None of them, including herself, were in any shape to fight. After she had learned of the impending equestrian army, she could feel the changeling's fear. It was like that of a cornered and wounded beast. Equestria had offered her an ultimatum. They could surrender and be guaranteed safety, or they could fight, and surrendering had never been an option for her. Chrysalis rallied her changelings, and they defended their nest valiantly. In the end, however, they were simply overpowered. Her changelings had followed their orders. They had given their lives to their queen without any second thought. She remembered being surrounded by the equestrians. She had held her ground and was willing to die that day. However, the equestrians had planned differently. They had captured her alive. At that moment, Chrysalis wondered if she should just end her life. It would be quick and easy for her to just give up everything. It would finally remove the heavy burden she had carried for so long. The idea of having no more responsibilities seemed extremely enticing. No, Chrysalis thought as she lifted her head back off the table. I cannot give in. I will have my revenge. I will escape this blasted city, and I will raise an army. Next time I will crush Celestia with my hooves. I will find a way to change back. I have to remain strong. Here you go, hon, Ryebread said as she placed her order in front of her. If you need anything, please feel free to ask me. With a quick smile, she trotted off to help another customer. Chrysalis stared at her sandwich. It was much larger than she had thought. Jelly and peanut butter were oozing out of the sides. She looked at it with utter disgust. This looks awful. Just look at how messy it is. Her stomach growled. She had no choice. She had to eat it. Awkwardly picking it up with her hooves, she closed her eyes and hesitantly took a small bite. Her eyes widened and her ears perked. It was delicious. She chewed it slowly just so she could savor every bite. Before her punishment she could taste food to some degree, but now that she was a regular pony and starving, she was experiencing the full flavor. She could taste the ingredients, the sweetness of the jelly and the savoriness of the peanut butter, and she could feel the texture of the bread. Chrysalis let out a quiet moan as she finished her first bite. Drooling a little as she anticipated the next bite, she slowly brought her meal closer to her muzzle as she closed her eyes. Splat! Chrysalis opened her eyes. Her one small joy was now covered in mortar. She dropped the ruined sandwich, her fury quickly rising as she gritted her teeth. "Ooch! Terribly sorry down there," a voice called out from above. Looking up, Chrysalis saw a pony in a bosun's chair slowly lowering himself down. When he finally made it to the ground, Chrysalis was able to get a good look at the pony responsible for ruining the one good thing she'd had in a long time. He was an earth pony with a gray coat, a brown mane, and brown eyes. She was able to see his cutie mark, a hammer and chisel. Sorry there, I guess I dropped some mortar. I didn't hurt you, did I?" the pony said. "You insolent fool!" Chrysalis shouted as she slammed her hooves on the ground. "You ruined my meal!" Grabbing her plate, she readied herself to throw her second dish into the pony's face. "You are right, ma'am," the pony said, kneeling in front of her with his head low to the ground. "I was a fool to have made such a stupid mistake. Please accept my humblest apologies." Chrysalis was stunned, dropping her plate. Here was the pony kneeling in front of her as though she were a queen again. She had no idea what to do. She had originally planned on unleashing her anger on this pony. "Please, ma'am, let me pay for your meal and order you a new one," he replied as he got up. "I do not need your help," Chrysalis snapped. "Please, I insist. Think of it not as help, but as a repayment for my actions. I have made a mistake, and I wish to correct it. Please, I owe you," he said. Chrysalis thought for a moment. She had not expected any pony to treat her like this. "He is right," she pondered. "He does owe me." "Fine," she declared, turning her head away. "Thank you. I am sorry I did not catch your name." "I am Mortar Brick," he said. Chrysalis stopped. "I am sorry, I couldn't quite make that out. What was it?" Mortar asked. Chrysalis eyed his plain face and brown eyes. Her mind raced. She could not use her real name, as that would raise suspicion. She tried to think of a name, but only one came to mind. Chrysalis did not want to use that name. It was a disgrace to her. But time was running out as Morta looked at her with anticipation. As much as it pained her, she had to use it. "It is Silver Skip," Chrysalis answered, struggling to say the words. She felt sick saying it. "What a lovely name. Well, Silver, since I ruined your meal, let me repay you. Order whatever you want, and as much as you want," Morta said cheerfully. "Fine, then," Chrysalis replied, sitting back down. She was still tired and hungry, at that moment wanting nothing more than the same sandwich. "I want another sandwich, the same one I had," Chrysalis demanded. "Very well, then, my lady," Morta said enthusiastically. "Rye, can you bring another sandwich for this mare here? I ruined her previous one." He turned to Chrysalis. "Do not fret, I will pay for it." The older waitress came out of the shop, waving a hoof. "Of course, Morta, I will bring it right away." Smiling, Morta took a seat across from Chrysalis. Her ear flicked in annoyance, but she could not just tell him to leave if he was paying for the food. "So," Morta said, while smiling at Chrysalis, "what brings an earth pony here to Canterlot? Last time I checked, this city is heavily populated by unicorns. Not that often I see another earth pony, especially if they're not of the elite." Chrysalis looked at him warily. "How do you know that I am not an elite? What if I am one?" Chrysalis said a little harshly. "I am elite. I am royalty, damn it." "Well, now, no need to get defensive. I figure that for a couple of reasons. First, the upper-class ponies always wear some article of clothing. Second, an upper-class pony wouldn't be caught dead at this commoner's establishment. They would have to go to some classy and overpriced place. And lastly, you just seem different somehow. I can't put my hoof on it," Morta answered, saying every word with care to make sure he did not offend the mare. "I am taking a temporary residence here," Chrysalis replied crossly. "If earth ponies are so rare here, then why are you here?" Morta smiled. "I'm a stonemason, as you can tell by your previous sandwich. I live and work here, just like my family before me. My ancestors built and maintained Canterlot, and I plan on doing the same. I am currently trying to fix the Bread's bakery. Their building was damaged during the changelings' attack. One of them little buggers blew right through the wall." Chrysalis turned her head away, avoiding eye contact. She did not want it to be known that she was responsible for all the damage. "I feel bad about it, you know. There was a lot of damage done," Morta said. "But don't you profit off that? I mean, with all the damage, you should have a lot of work," Chrysalis asked, raising an eyebrow. "Well, yeah, but still, a lot of good ponies got their property damaged. Yeah, the work is good, and it's giving me a lot of bits, but still. They suffer, yet I profit. It does not feel right," Morta replied solemnly. Chrysalis stared at him. Why should he feel bad? Because of me he is doing well. Why should he care about his customers? Morta sighed, resting his head on his hoof and breaking his other on the table. Chrysalis noticed numerous scars on his forehoofs. "How did you get those?" she asked, pointing a hoof. Morta snapped to attention, glad that the subject was changed. "Well, I am a stonemason. I work with my hooves," Morta replied, as he beamed with pride. "That, and I am a tad clumsy at times. Accidents happen." Chrysalis was going to push the issue further, but stopped when Rye placed the sandwich before her. Grabbing it, she voraciously devoured it, not caring how she looked or about the mess she made. Morta stared at the tan mare in shock and amazement. He opened his mouth to say something, but closed it when Chrysalis finished eating and stared at him. "More," Chrysalis demanded. Obeying, Morta ordered another one. When the second sandwich came out, she attacked it like the first. This pattern continued, the plates next to her stacking and making a tower. After her fifth sandwich she finally stopped, putting her head on the table to rest with a satisfied smile. Mortar looked at her with concern. "Silver?" Mortar said quietly. "What?" Chrysalis asked harshly, not bothering to lift her head off the table. "Is everything all right?" Mortar asked. "Yes," she lied. "You are lying." Chrysalis lifted her head from the table, staring daggers at Mortar. "I am fine. Now go pay for my meal and leave me alone," she demanded. "I am not going to pay for it unless you tell me what is wrong," he replied. "I told you I am fine. Why can't you understand that?" Chrysalis said, annoyance in her voice. She squinted at him. "Yeah, no pony, or anything for that matter, eats like that unless they are starving. I know something is wrong, so unless you want to pay for that nice stack of food you just devoured—" His facial expression hardened. Chrysalis glared at him. "I am low on bits," she answered softly, looking away. "Do you not have a job?" Mortar asked, concerned. "I got fired," she said flatly, remembering the insolent fool she had attacked. "Well, if you need a job, I know where you can get one," he said. "I do not need your pity or your help," Chrysalis replied quickly. "I am not pitying you. Every pony could use help once in a while. Look, I know the owners of this bakery, and I know they are short on staff. The only ponies who run the shop are Sourdough and his wife Rye. When it gets busy, they are overworked. They could really use a waiter," Mortar said. "I do not want to be a waiter. I do not want to deal with those insolent customers," Chrysalis said stubbornly. "Yeah, that is true. You meet jerks no matter what job you have. Sadly, it is a part of life. But that does not mean you can't take advantage of them. A good waitress could easily play with some customers," Mortar said slyly. Chrysalis raised an eyebrow. She liked the idea of toying with ponies. That was what she was used to. "And how would I do that?" Chrysalis asked, taking the bait. "Well, a good waitress can charm her customers, making them give up bigger tips. It would be easy to control the younger colts, if you catch my drift. A bat of the eyelashes or a simple wink can have them eating out of your hooves." Chrysalis smiled mischievously at the idea. Mortar smiled back, knowing his plan worked. He wanted to help this mare because he could just tell that she was going through a lot. It was very hard for ponies not to have a job in Equestria. He figured something must be going on. He could also tell from the way she carried herself that she was a very proud pony, who probably would never accept help outright. He had to sweeten his words to point her in the right direction. "Now, of course, you are going to have to deal with the inevitable jerk. Just go along with their ego so they leave faster. Do not think of this as help. Think of it as an offer." Chrysalis mulled the idea over. She needed bits, and she needed a job. The prospect of using her charms and wits to manipulate pleased her. She did not want help from any pony. However, as Mortar said, it was an offer. Technically, he is not helping me if he is offering something. "Fine, I will accept your offer," she said, after a long pause. "Great," Mortar exclaimed. "Now I'm curious. What was your previous job?" "I was a waiter at the garden." "Really? How in Equestria did you get a job there? That place is so selective with both its customers and its workers. They do not let just any pony walk in there for a job," Mortar said, shocked. Chrysalis just looked at him with a confused look. "That is exactly what I did," she remarked. "Wow. Then you must have really won them over or something. You must be an expert to do that. But if you got accepted, how did you get fired?" Mortar asked. "I slammed a platter of food into some pony's face. I think his name was Blue Blood," Chrysalis said nonchalantly. Mortar's eyes widened and his jaw dropped. "You assaulted Prince Blue Blood? Princess Celestia's distant nephew? Wait, what? You mean that bastard is related to Celestia? Chrysalis began to panic. It had only been a day, and she had already attacked a relative of Celestia. She did not want to be dragged off by the god and thrown in a dark cell. Chrysalis started to hyperventilate, trying to think of a way to escape. Mortar, however, fell on the ground, bursting into laughter, clutching his sides. "This is not funny. I am in a dire situation right now," Chrysalis shouted. Mortar finally caught his breath. "I cannot believe you actually did that. You have no idea just how badly I wanted to see that. I would pay so much to see that jerk get what he deserves. You do not need to worry. You should be fine." "What do you mean?" "This is not the first time a pony has attacked Blue Blood. Celestia knows he is an ass, so I do not think she would care. As long as you did not cause any permanent injury, you should be fine," Mortar explained. "But can't he just imprison me?" Chrysalis asked worriedly. "If the guards actually imprisoned all the ponies Blue Blood wants to lock up, there would be no pony left in Equestria. He may have the title of a prince, but he pretty much has little power. The only thing he can do is make the nobility suck up to him. With the way he acts, Celestia would not allow him to have any power," Mortar said. Chrysalis began to calm down. "So I should be fine?" she asked. "Yep. Now let's go meet with Rye and Sourdough. I bet they would be pleased to know that they can have an extra set of hooves. Don't worry, they're a really nice couple," Mortar replied as he led Chrysalis into the bakery. Celestia examined the report in front of her. She was a little upset to find out that Chrysalis had attacked another pony. However, given Chrysalis's current situation and the fact that it was Blue Blood, it was not surprising. Celestia was surprised, however, that Chrysalis did manage to get a job so quickly, and at such a fancy place, no less. Celestia knew that Blue Blood was extremely hard to be around, and she bet he had insulted Chrysalis. Chrysalis's pride would probably not stand for that. Still, she could not just beat up every pony who upset her. Celestia tapped a hoof on her chin, thinking. She would let the incident slide just this once. Blue Blood could use a lesson in humility. "Begone this instant! I must speak to the princess. I have dire news of a threat against Equestria," a pony outside shouted. "No," one of the guards replied. "The princess is not taking any visitors right now." "Guards, who is out there right now?" Celestia asked. She did not have to ask, though. It was obvious who it was. "It is Prince Blue Blood, Your Highness," the other guard answered. Celestia sighed. "Let him in," she finally said. "I told you this was a dire emergency," Blue Blood said as he opened the door. It took all of Celestia's experience of being a ruler to not burst out laughing. Blue Blood came in with his nose and chin held high, arrogant as ever. His nose was completely swollen, and he had a black eye. It was a hilarious sight indeed. Resisting the urge to laugh, Celestia put on a regal countenance. "Prince Blue Blood, I am busy at the moment. What is the matter that requires my urgent attention?" she said calmly. "Princess, there is a threat to Equestria. Just earlier, I was attacked," Blue Blood explained dramatically. "Just look at my face." "And who, pray tell, attacked you, Blue Blood?" Celestia asked, her tone not changing. "Some waitress attacked me when I was at a restaurant. I demand that she be thrown in prison for life," Blue Blood said. "And why would some waitress attack you?" "I do not know. She just attacked me out of the blue," Blue Blood snorted. "You did not call her anything now, did you?" Celestia asked, raising an eyebrow. "I called her what she was, a lowly peasant who was late delivering my food. I did nothing wrong," Blue Blood said. Celestia's face hardened, and she gave Blue Blood a stern look. Blue Blood, how many times have I told you there is no difference between you or any other pony? You cannot treat ponies like that, ever, she said harshly. Blue Blood wilted at the hard words, backing up a little and stammering. But she... No buts, Blue Blood. I am very tired of telling you this. You are not more important. You treat ponies the way you want to be treated. You insulted that mare, so she insulted and hit you. If you want to be treated with respect, then you must respect others, regardless of where they come from, Celestia continued, as she got up, looking down at Blue Blood. Blue Blood shrank under her gaze. Princess, he mumbled. Enough, Blue Blood. This is the last time I will give you this lesson. If I hear that you do this again, there will be consequences. Now leave at once, Celestia stated, stamping her hoof for emphasis. Blue Blood scurried out of the room, his tail between his legs. Closing the door, Celestia sighed. She really did not like being the strict, harsh teacher, but she had given Blue Blood too many chances already. She hoped that this would be the last time she heard something like this. Celestia was tired of all the complaints against Blue Blood. She did care for him, but that did not mean she would not be strict with him. Lying back down, she got back to her paperwork. She let out a light chuckle. I am impressed. For a small mare like her, she throws a mean hoof.